In 2019, Ethiopian Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed won the Nobel Peace Prize for resolving their border conflict with neighboring country Eritrea. And now footage has been spotted of him on the front lines of an internal conflict. So how did Ethiopia's democratic transition turn into a disaster? In order to fully understand this, we have to go back in time to 1991. The Ethiopian Civil War is over. The Derg state, or the Provisional Military Government of Socialist Ethiopia, which was a Marxist-Leninist one-party government, has collapsed. And now get ready for a lot of titles. The Ethiopian People's Revolutionary Democratic Front, or the EPRDF, is formed amongst the Amhara Democratic Party, the Oromo Democratic Party, the Southern Ethiopian People's Democratic Movement, and the Tigrayan People's Liberation Front, or the TPLF. Oh, sorry, that was just a lot of words. The country will be ruled under the EPRDF and its Tigrayan leader Meles Zenawi for 21 years. And this time Ethiopia grew both economically and autocratically. In 2005, Ethiopia saw relatively open and fair elections, with the EPRDF winning the majority, but with other parties gaining tens of seats in parliament. This ended up scaring the Tigrayan People's Liberation Front, which was the leading party in the EPRDF. So when the 2010 and 2015 elections came around, the EPRDF completely dominated. At the same time, ethnic Tigrayans started gaining advantages in the country. Tigrayan-owned businesses were able to reach tax breaks and government services which were not available to other ethnically owned businesses. And some businesses sat Tigrayans in their merchandise trucks to avoid unnecessary stops at customs. When Zenawi suddenly died in 2012, the country grew much more unstable, with a new leader and instability in the EPRDF. In 2018, Abiy Ahmed took control of the country and started shifting it to a more democratic state. Abiy met with over 50 opposition parties and exiled leaders. He, as mentioned, won the Nobel Peace Prize for ending hostilities with Eritrea. He merged 3 of 4 EPRDF's parties and other parties to create the non-ethnic Prosperity Party. New non-ethnic party received pushback, some of which came from the Tigrayan People's Liberation Front, which called the new party illegal and reactionary and was the only party of the EPRDF to not merge. Now that we are done with the background, the video gets to actually start. Now we have the newly formed Prosperity Party and the former leader of the EPRDF, the Tigrayan People's Liberation Front, at odds with each other in the next federal election in 2020. That election ended up being postponed by the Ethiopian National Poll Body due to the pandemic, along with all other elections. But the Tigrayan region, in a challenge to Abiy's authority, went ahead with regional elections, which saw boycotts from some parties and the TPLF managing to win all contested seats. This election came with threats from the federal government, which said it was a shanty election and said it had no legal basis. But then the TPLF fired back. When the government's non-postponed mandate was finished, the TPLF declared the federal government illegal. So at this point, the Prosperity Party in the federal government and the TPLF in the Tigrayan region saw each other as illegitimate. Both sides continued to escalate tensions as a new general sent from the federal government was blocked from taking up post in Tigray, and the Tigrayan region had its funding cut by the federal government. After months of growing tensions, a spark ignited the conflict. On November 3rd, 2020, at 11:30 p.m., a federal soldier was standing out of the Danshaw military base. Then 10 members of the Tigrayan Special Forces got out of their vehicles and demanded to see the camp's commander. When the guard refused, arguments ensued, and then gunshots. The shootout lasted for 11 hours, and the next day the Ethiopian National Defense Forces invaded. By the end of November 2020, the capital of Tigray, Mekelle, had been bombarded with shells and had fallen to the Ethiopian federal government. Prime Minister Abiy then declared victory over the TPLF and its armed wing, the Tigrayan Defense Forces, or TDF. But as you can tell, looking at the news, that's not where the conflict ended. The TDF then fled to the mountains and after months of fighting in a big blow to the federal government, retook Mekelle. The federal forces pulled out of the region and opted for a ceasefire. And by mid-July, the Tigrayan fighters had retook a large portion of their region. But instead of ending there, the TDF pushed forward. A month later, several militia groups joined the TDF, which is when several regions joined the Ethiopian federal government's cause. To officially formed two distinct sides. The United Front of Ethiopian Federalist and Confederalist Forces, which was led by the militias, and the Government of Ethiopia along with several regions. On October 11th, the ceasefire the government had declared earlier was effectively gone, as an offensive that was made on all fronts was made by the government. But the United Front continued to advance, pushing their way closer to the capital of Ethiopia, Addis Ababa. On November 2nd, all of Ethiopia was placed under a state of emergency, and Prime Minister Abiy called on citizens of Addis Ababa to take up arms. The Prime Minister has even been seen on the front lines. So that's how the conflict has played out this far. But what it skips is the people in between. This war has played a major role in the creation of the worst famine in the world since 2011, affecting over 5.5 million people. The Ethiopian Red Cross said that 80% of the Tigray region is out of reach of humanitarian aid. 2 million of Tigray's 6 million people have fled, with Sudan seeing tens of thousands of refugees crossing into their country. Thousands of civilians have been involved in mass killings and massacres by the Ethiopian National, Eritrean, and Tigrayan defense forces. And this conflict has the possibility to destabilize the entire Horn of Africa. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you found it informative, please feel free to click some of the buttons below. And now you know how Ethiopia's democratic transition turned into a disaster. From Nobel Peace Prize winner to being on the front lines of a war. What a change.